During the early 2000s, when there was a boom in the energy drink market, one company decided to join the competition. In this era, there was a lot of attention on energy drinks, brought on by their heavy sponsorships, notably in sports. While the giants like Red Bull, Monster and Rockstar battled, smaller grassroots companies popped up to try gain a foothold in the market space. One such company was named Maxium. Their pitch was simple. It was an energy drink for the common man. Rather than selling it on the idea of high-octane caffeine, they sold it on the basis that it was like a sweeter morning coffee. Its unique angle made it an instant hit in the province it debuted in. People were lining up to stockpile on them, since it was less hassle than making cups of coffee throughout the day, and it was cheaper than going to Starbucks. People started hoarding them to ration through the day. This initially caused a shortage. Investments poured in, and production was ramped up. It didn't take long for the Maxium company to expand. For the brief period they reigned, they were on top. They were one of the top-selling beverages in their state. But this paradigm didn't last long. It started with some confusing business decisions. They started pumping heavy amounts of caffeine into a sports version of the product. There were shortages of the original Maxium energy drink in order to expand into the sports drink market. This obviously drove the common man market, the unique angle they hit, away. This new drink wasn't a hit, but for a reason beyond what you'd expect. The first reported case flew under the radar, seen as a one-off for a teen who irresponsibly chugged too much Maxium Sport. The kid was barely breathing, just about stable from his staggered hyperventilation. His heart rate was beyond normal for even high exertion exercise. He was eventually resuscitated, and that was that. Then, another case came in. Then another. Then another. Each stranger than the last. Some of the smaller symptoms seemed in line with negative effects of such a product. A faster heart rate, excessive sweating, loss of focus. But these weren't the cases that were being rushed to the hospital. People were reporting to have experienced heart palpitations, uncontrollable vomiting, and extreme head pains. Just as the doctors had a grasp of the situation and started correlating a cause from the post-treatment interviews, more patients rolled in. One woman was preparing for a tennis game when her friends found her scratching at her face, screaming about the pain. When they finally wrestled her to stop, they watched as she broke down and wept, streams of red running from under her eyes. A student was staying up revising for an upcoming test when his mother walked in and found him having a seizure. She rushed him to the ER and explained the situation. What confused the staff was when she told them he didn't suffer from any form of epilepsy. Stranger yet, what they diagnosed was that the boy wasn't having a seizure at all, but rather, he was convulsing from a rapid amount of muscle spasms. They could only liken it to being electrocuted. His muscles were constantly firing off at such a rapid rate. After a big investigation spanning over a few months, it was found that the only correlation between these cases was the Maxium Sport energy drink. Though they never found what specifically caused these various issues. It wasn't long for the company to shut down, having to pay a fortune in many legalities and medical bills. However, the story doesn't end here. All these reports that were published in journals, newspapers, and on the TV were all the cases that were chosen to be publicly acknowledged. These reports were all the physical cases. There are some testimonies that are very hard to find, either through censorship or a lack of archiving, that flew under the public radar. They were most likely deemed too unrealistic for anyone reading the news to believe. These were the mentality symptoms. One patient was comatose for a few days. When she woke, she immediately fell into hysterics. She clawed at any nearby staff and had to be sedated. When staff finally got her to a state where she could coherently communicate, all she did was beg for death and for him to leave her alone. A few days later, she was found dead by her own hands. Authorities found a half-drank can of Maxium Sport in her car. A businessman was reported for his strange behavior. He CC'd everyone in his company, complaining about a guy who kept following him, though it was hard to read the terribly typed sentences. The grammar hinted that he was shaking uncontrollably while typing. The last thing he typed was that he was going to chase after the guy next time he saw him, since no one was helping him. He was found splattered on the pavement and his 15th-story window smashed open. His secretary only noted about his screaming in his office, though she thought he was just grilling someone over the phone. The only other notable thing she pointed out was that she gave him the new Maxium Sport energy drink that he asked her to get. There were some reports that the police ended up dismissing during this period. Though they differ somewhat from each other, there was a common theme. Some individuals rang in, terrified for their lives, all complaining about a strange figure that stalked them. They described scenes of them trying to go to bed, only to see a shade in the corner. Once they focused on it, the shade got closer, until it revealed itself as a figure slowly floating towards them. His face was gaunt and twisted in a shape of pain. A common detail between these testimonies is the blood leaking down the left side of his head. Supposedly, the haunting figure only did one thing: repeatedly asked them to go to the Maxium factory. These complaints were only around during Maxium Sport's brief release and stopped soon after the company closed. There's a theory floating around online about this. Just after Maxium Sport's inception, a crucial founding member of the staff left. There were 3 main owners. 2 of them were heavy investors, and the third, Randall Walker, headed marketing. When Randall left, the other 2 took charge and radically changed the company. The other 2 were heavily into the idea of stepping into the sports drink market, as evident from their past postings on social media, and their enthusiasm for their new product, Maxium Sport. Randall, on the other hand, was the genius behind the original pitch and spearheaded the company into the spotlight. It's theorized that Randall didn't leave on good terms, despite what the other 2 owners fervently announced. Instead, it's thought that Randall was ousted when the other 2 confronted him about his promise of putting them in the energy drink scene. They wanted to be in the same market as Monster and Red Bull, oblivious to how well their unique product was doing in its open market space. This much is easy to discern if you read between the lines. However, the theories go deeper. One person, on a now deleted blog, claimed to have briefly worked security at the Maxium factory. One day, he was emailed to leave immediately and never come back to work. He only read it once he arrived to his shift. Initially, he was disappointed. However, no matter how much he thought back, he felt he had never done anything wrong, or at least egregious to be fired on the spot. This made him suspicious, so just before some people came to escort him out, he made a copy of the whole week's security footage on a USB stick and hid it. Once home, he combed through the files to see if anything was off. At first, everything worked fine. However, the closer he got to the night before, the worse the footage became. It flickered at intervals, sometimes jumping minutes ahead. It showed signs of heavy analog damage, despite it being fresh footage. The last thing he saw was a late-night meeting between the three owners. By then, the footage was becoming hard to make out. It jumped around and flickered sporadically. However, the security guard just about noticed the two aggressors beat the third figure over the head, just before the image became full static. He saw them dump the fallen figure in one of the mixing vats, and static just rolled. This lines up to the report of an unidentified body found in the factory not long after. All identifiable features erased by the chemical the body was bathed in. The security guard yanked the USB stick out when, between the static, a strange, warped face kept flicking in and out. Its face was gaunt and twisted in pain. The only colour was blood running down the left side of its face. When he reinserted the stick to try transfer the file, his computer showed the drive as wiped, the error stating the stick wasn't removed properly. It's unknown how much of this story can be verified. It's also unknown the whereabouts of Randall Walker. A lot of people accept the explanation that he moved far away with his large share of the money when he left at the height of the business. Most are more concerned about the many affected by the tainted final product, some still recovering to this day. However, the locals try their best to never bring any of this up, opting to want to forget it all, and hope this dark part of their town's history fades away.